Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I'm your host. Okay, so this is going to be a really short one because we don't have that much news to talk about. I didn't read that much this week, except for a few of the two series that I'm still really in love with. But I will go over my last remaining thoughts on Sabrina Season 3 now that I finished that, and maybe give my own little eulogy to the Arrowverse as a whole, now that I have no other reason to even talk about it, for now at least, until the next show ends. Anyway, let's move on right into it. First off, we have some TV news in that apparently Hulu has canceled the vast majority of their planned animated Marvel sitcoms. Like you had the Tigra and you had the Howard the Duck sitcom, but apparently they still have on their hook the MODOK Patton Oswalt show. And I'm kind of surprised about that because it seemed like any of the other ones had more potential. But in any case, it does seem like kind of a shame that they had to go through all this just to get nipped off right at the end. I hope MODOK is good. I probably won't see it, just like I still haven't seen Harley Quinn. But in any case, fingers crossed for it. And so let's move right on ahead to what I read this week. First off, we have Dial H for Hero number 11. So this is the penultimate issue of this Maxis series. And I have to say, it has been one of the best reading experiences of my life of the last couple of years, at least. Humphries and Quinones are doing such an amazing job. And it's not just because they've tackled the new gods in the fourth world in this issue, which, by the way, is one of the best ways they could have handled it. They really went for it. Quinones captures Kirby's art style and that all of his DC work had perfectly. They nail it. But more than that, it's that everything feels so coalesced. It feels like all of this incredible, creative, manic, and just energetic enthusiasm for the DC universe, for superheroes, for all these wacky, far-out, goofball concepts has finally started tunneling in towards something meaningful, towards something satisfying. It's all felt like it's all led to this, and that's been so amazing to even read as a fan, as someone who enjoys these kinds of stories. It feels very satisfying, and just to see how it starts collapsing on itself, but not in the bad way, but in a way that makes it feel very structured, very earned, and it's probably been one of the best Maxis series from either of the big two to have done that so perfectly. And I think Humphries Quinones, well, they deserve a pat on the back for being that diligent about how they're writing this, about how they're creating this story that they're telling us and how they're presenting it to us. And, well, you know, 2 thumbs up. But honestly, Humphries, he's nailed this atmosphere, and Quinones is a true comic chameleon. They're one of the most versatile artists in the game right now. DC needs to pair them up with either like someone on the likes of Morrison or Giffen, a writer who's going to take so much advantage of that potential right there to create a story that's going to use all those talents. I remember like the last thing Quinones was on for Marvel was America, and that was one of the most bland, ugly, and flat books I've ever read in terms of just the art style and the aesthetic. It's just night and day, and I just can't wait to see what else they're going to be on. I wouldn't even be adverse to more Madcap Adventures with Humphries. Just whatever is going to get more of that out there, because we need more series like this that are just a joy to read, are so perfectly an example of what makes superhero stories fun and so immersive and so engaging. I can't wait for more of it. It's going far out places, so I hope the last issue is going to be able to land with any kind of neatness or sincerity. But fingers crossed, and I have all due hope in Humphries and Quinones pulling this off. So 2 thumbs up. And next up, we have Immortal Hulk number 30. This is an issue that I like more than the last couple, but still not hitting it for me. It still feels very sparse. It knows what it wants to do, but there's no real engagement there. It feels very stilted. It feels like we need to hit this beat, we need to hit this beat, we need to show this scene, but it doesn't feel very immersive. It doesn't feel like you're being drawn into the story outside of like little pinpoints that it wants to showcase. It's better at it than the last couple issues because we are seeing more of the characters. It doesn't feel as empty or as lifeless in terms of the energy, because you're seeing more of Gamma Flight and you're seeing more of Rick Jones and how that's being affected by everyone, and everyone else is just kind of bouncing off each other, which is great. It just doesn't feel as cohesive or as concentrated as it could be. And I know that Ewing and Bennett aren't wasting time here, but it does feel like we're just padding it out And that's a shame. It really is. Like I said, I enjoy Rick Jones. I think he has a lot more flavor and a lot more personality to him than he has had since he showed up. So I'm glad. I'm glad we're seeing more of Rick Jones getting his own voice again. I'm glad we're seeing more of how Betty is able to handle herself with other teammates or the characters, and just how much this is affecting everyone. So those are good things. Those are forward progression. I love it. But it doesn't feel like this issue should have been just another standalone issue. You could have honestly paired the last 3 issues up into like an issue and a half, and I think it would have worked better, because right now you just feel like, okay, we have to spend an entire issue gaining up toward the lead up for these monsters that aren't even that interesting, and you have another issue getting up to the lead up to Zenmu, and that's kind of the money shot there. Like Zenmu showing up, that's great, but again, it's just fighting random, boring, uninteresting monsters for the hefty runtime, with the only respite being, like I said, the fun little character dynamics and back and forths and banter, and it just feels imbalanced. So I wish that there was more of a forward projection here, something that was a core here that you could let yourself be carried away by, but there just isn't, at least so far. I hope that now that Zenmu has appeared, we are going to be able to see a little more of a theme here that we can latch on to and sort of just envelop ourselves in. Fingers crossed, but overall, one thumb middle, one thumb up. All right, so now we can head on to what I watched this week. Now, last week, I actually wrote that Sabrina review in my script based on only the first episodes. But I did finish that season by the end of the day that I was recording. So I could have adjusted it to sort of fulfill everything that I had witnessed. The problem was that I went back and read that little script I wrote based on the first episodes and realized that it kind of said everything it needed to, because nothing else in the season actually changes anything, because the characters are still where they are, just the same blank slates, or still as dynamic as interesting as they can be, respectively to who they are. And nothing else in the story actually matters. The plot doesn't really matter. And everyone is just sort of circling in wheels in terms of what significance any of it has. You might have had the season-long villain be defeated, but they were just placeholders for a greater villain, and that's probably just going to be placeholders for whatever sort of theme or sort of message they want to impart, so it's probably going to end up meaning nothing. Sabrina is still a really, really shallow and not very well-developed character. Harvey is still a very shallow and not well-developed character. Roz, I guess, is a little bit more interesting by the end of it, but it does feel a little bit more hollow given that we haven't seen anything that was a great lead up to it. Meanwhile, you still have Theo, who is one of the best characters I've ever seen on a Netflix show, and they're still going right at it. Like, nothing I said about Theo really changes either. They're still really dynamic, they're still really interesting, they're still really engaging, they're still really fun and exciting to watch, and they still have their whole romance subplot going on, which I still hope goes out well, and I'm glad it didn't implode by the end of the season, because I thought it was really cute. So my main problem with the show in this season and the entire series is that it tries to have a message. It tries to make witches and sort of the occult metaphor for the disenfranchised, for, like, I guess minority fringe groups, or like about the downtrodden, like women in the workplace or women in society, or minorities in the society, or I guess LGBTQ people in society. And I've seen that take sort of bandied around a lot, and I feel like that's kind of a bad take to have. I mean, I'm glad you can able to see some sort of empowerment in that, but the way the show goes about it, it never makes the case for the witches and the occultists not being bad people. Like, I'm glad you can see, like, sort of empowerment message there. You get some sort of, I guess, strength from it, but the witches in Sabrina are still really, really evil, and they're still doing horrible things, and the show never makes an attempt to have them not do evil things. Like, at a certain point, you have Sabrina, in order to keep a hold of her witch power, she ends up torturing an angel, and she does it in like the most blasé and just nonchalant way. And I feel like if at that point where you're torturing an angel to keep your evil powers you sold your soul to the devil for, then maybe you'd be easier just to, find God, at least in this setting, because God exists. And it feels like you're just going out of your way to have excuses for yourself to be evil. And if you're using this as a metaphor for all these groups I just mentioned, then that's a pretty backhanded metaphor, and I don't really see like the purpose in that. It just feels very lopsided, and that's my main issue, because the characters aren't likable, the characters aren't interesting, and I really don't understand how much empathy you could have for them when they're still going about being malicious and malevolent and downright, well, black-hearted. It's really insane. Other than that, like I said, I still enjoy Theo, and the show overall is less aggravatingly annoying than the first 2 seasons. Because at the very least, despite the characters, the vast majority of characters at least, being as stupid and as insipid as they usually are, at the very least, most of them are more proactive than they were in the first two, where they would just be like, oh no, what do I do? This time they're making plans. They're really dumb plans that end up backfiring in pretty much every way possible that you can see coming from a mile away, but they're at least still trying to do something. So I had to give credit for that. Overall, 2 thumbs down, except for 2 thumbs up for Theo. So congrats for them. Anyway, that's for my thoughts on Sabrina. And now I guess I have to mention the series finale of Arrow. And obviously, I only seen like a couple episodes of Arrow. I saw a couple episodes of the first season and I dropped it for being terrible. And I saw a couple episodes of season 2 because, I was into the hype for The Flash. Like, I was knee deep into it. Like, yes, can't wait for The Flash. So I watched those episodes and they were okay-ish. I really only watched them for Barry. And I thought like, hey, like Barry's cute and, very, very sweet. So I didn't know he would become the annoying bastard that he would be in the show. But that's beside the point. It's ended after like, 8 seasons or so, and that's an accomplishment. I want to say that right off the bat. But I don't think it's an accomplishment the way people are saying it is. Like, people are giving it credit for the whole glut of comic shows that we've been subjected to, and I think that's giving it too much credit. I think that it can only really be extended to the CW verse shows. Arrow didn't let us get Gotham. Arrow didn't let us get the Fox Marvel shows. Arrow didn't let us get the sci-fi comic shows or the USA Network comic shows or the FX comic shows. These are unrelated things. At the very best, you can say that Arrow led us to get the DC Universe shows, but that's pretty much it. It didn't really have that much influence in how things came about, because even Gotham led to the Pennyworth prequel, and Arrow itself was the third attempt at a spin-off of Smallville, because they had the Aquaman show and the Birds of Prey show that were meant to sort of leech off that show's success. So if anything, it's all Smallville's fault, because it led to both Gotham and Arrow led to the CW-verse shows and led to the DC app shows, so that should get more of the credit. In any case, I'm just glad it was able to have an ending. I'm glad that the fans were able to get some closure and some definitive, satisfaction from the show. That's amazing, and not a lot of shows get that. So I just so appreciate that they were able to get that from an experience they loved, even if I really, really hated it. That's something to be grateful for. So congrats to all of them. And at the very least, despite my intense despising of this entire small superhero show universe, at the very least, it gave a pitch perfect epilogue to Smallville. And I will always appreciate that too. So congrats to Arrow. You won't be soon forgotten, for better or worse. Anyway, that's it for what I watched this week. We have no listener question this week. I just want to say thank you to everyone out there who's ever sent in a question, comment, or topic. It means so much to me. I'm just so grateful for that, and it means so much to me, and I just love answering them whenever I get them. So thank you so much, and it means the world. It really does. Anyway, if anyone out there has their own question, comment, or topic, you can always find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. I'll give a shout out to the cover artist for the show at DOTEMCEE. Please check them out. They're amazing. I just want to say thank you for listening. Hope you have a great week, and see you again next time, where we will be doing a review of Birds of Prey, hopefully. So can't wait to see how that turns out. Have a great one.